I know. Yeah, I mean, first series, Eastern Conference, I'd be remiss if I don't, at least mention how we got here. My Knicks falling to Indiana in seven. It was frustrating to say the least. Frustrating to say the least. But 7 game series, pretty much our whole team got injured. Brunson breaking his hand at the end. OG Ananobi going down. Josh Hart straining his ab. I mean, it was just player after player going down. Um, Pacers, you got to give them, like, as upset as I am that they won, they did their job. They went out there, they won, they went to the Garden in game seven, and they beat us. So, I won't say that they didn't earn their spot in the conference finals, but, I think we'll talk about the Western Conference in a little bit, but definitely think that the paths for both of these teams have been significantly easier than the adversity that we've seen the Western Conference Finals team face so far. Um, but yes, I guess we saw game one recently. The Pacers almost pulled it off, too. I'm talking about they didn't deserve to be there, but they almost stole the game from Celtics, almost took home court advantage. What did you think about game one? And I guess, what do you think about this series in general? Mm. So that is a pretty hot take. I don't mind it, honestly. I mean, I think that's the one thing that we've mentioned before, and I think it is the reputation that the Celtics team has is, they're going to crumble at some point, whether it be the conference finals, the NBA finals. They are going to falter at some point. Like that, you can count on. So it's going to be interesting. We almost saw them give away that game. And Jaylen Brown, at the end of regulation, he was able to pull it back, huge three-pointer with Siakam in his face. And, in the overtime, they were able to take over. But it was looking really risky there at the end of regulation. It seemed like that game was over, barring, a Pacers turnover, which ended up changing the tide. So I do think that the Pacers, you know, it's something that they've been showing us all playoffs, which is why even though I do think they'll win at least a game, I don't know if they win the series is because they keep making these key mistakes at the end of games. They keep having these simple turnovers, even in the series against us, and they beat us. But with a lot of unnecessary turnovers, a lot of just signs of them being a young team and needing to grow and have this experience. I think that making it this far is going to make the Pacers a lot better moving forward. So this is, great for them that they've been able to do this, but I don't know if they're able to push past the Celtics team that on paper has far more than them. And even though they're known to falter, they've made it to the finals before. They've been here, they've won, they have the guys. I see Boston being able to take this. How far the series goes, though, I think that is more in question, and I'm curious to see what ends up happening there. Yeah. Mm. I'm gonna go with same guy who I just mentioned earlier, Jalen Brown. I think that you know for as great of a player as Jason Tatum is, this is about the time where we start to see him falter, be inconsistent. We saw in the fourth quarter of that game one, there was a lot of shots that he missed, specifically in the last 5 minutes, that clutch time. If not for Jalen Brown hitting that shot, they don't get into overtime for Jason Tatum to do the things that he did for them to win. So I think that Jalen Brown is going to be key throughout the rest of this series. And I ultimately see him being the difference maker, even if, obviously he didn't have the best game, but I still feel like he's going to be the one who pushes them over the edge and is really a difference maker for them throughout this series. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like six too, but I could, you know, wouldn't be surprised if it's, one shorter and five, or if the Pacers take it to seven. But I feel like Indiana is really strong at home. I see them getting at least one game in Indiana, and I think momentum from that will allow them to take, that I think that game five they'll be able to win. Um, if they can get one of those games in Indiana, I see them taking game five and losing in game six. I'll ask you though, if Indiana, obviously it's a must-win game for them tonight. What player outside of Halliburton do you feel like is the X factor for them? Who do you think is going to have to be their MVP for them to win this series? I think against the Knicks, it was kind of, or I was going to say against the Knicks, I feel like it was kind of TJ McConnell, honestly, which like hurts me to say, but I think he was the biggest difference maker in that series in terms of his defense. And yeah, so something like that. I know you were about to have your answer. Okay. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Hmm. I think it's someone who's not playing yet. It's going to be Porzingis. I think. It's we know that he's going to be out. He was out for the last game. He's going to be out tonight too. We don't know. It seems like, I mean, based off of, I feel like game three, there's optimism that he's going to be able to come back, but we don't know for certain yet. I think whenever he's reintroduced into the series, though, that that's something that for Boston, I think can be the difference between 5 games and 6 games, or 6 games and 7 games. Um, Porzingis is the type of versatile big man that especially for a Pacers team with Miles Turner, I think that they and with Siakam there as well, they need top and they have a lot of big athletic guys. Porzingis is going to, alleviate some of that pressure off of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum with his ability to space. And defensively, you have a 7-3 guy in there who's as skilled as he is. He's going to be able to make an impact. So I think that is the biggest X factor for them, but it's going to really be dependent on how soon does he come back and how healthy is he actually when he gets back as well. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first off, I think it's interesting. Anthony Edwards, we've been singing his praises this offseason or this postseason up until this point, but Kyrie Irving really put him in his place in game one. Anthony Edwards called him out. He said he wanted Kyrie in the post game interview after beating Denver, and Kyrie showed him, why he is who he is, why he's Kyrie. It was, a really vintage performance from him. I think Luka, that duo, what we saw flashes of last season, we're now seeing the full potential of now, and that is really scary. Like, I mean, all talent wise, that's one of the best backcourts talent wise in the history of the NBA between Luka and Kyrie. So to be able to see them operating on the way they are with the role players around them, Derek Lively, Derek Jones Jr. They have consistent talent. Josh Green. They have guys around them that are making plays when they need them to. Um, but it's still coming down to those two guys. I think that it was a great game one from Dallas. I don't. I think this is going to be a really interesting series. I think this is far more interesting than the Celtics Pacers, um, just because Minnesota, we've we've seen what they can do. We've seen that they are great. Both sides of the game, offensively and defensively, but and they have those star guys in Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, but is that star power and is that overall talent enough to beat just like two superstars? Like they don't really have Anthony Edwards is trying to break into that superstar space. Like we're saying, like this is his breakout season into that, but he's not there yet. He's coming up against two bona fide, like real superstars. This I think is the biggest test of his career so far. But for Luca and Kyrie, they've both been in this situation before. They've both been here, and I think that showed in Game One. I don't know. I guess I'm. I think it's. I think this series goes to 7 for sure, but I don't know. I think there's this series is just so interesting. What do you think about it? How are you? How are you feeling after Game One? Yeah, Mhm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, no, yeah, I guess either we'll do same thing with the best players. You're saying, obviously Anthony Edwards, he's someone who, is going to need to step up for the Timberwolves. Who else do you see, needing to, either step up or just continue to have big performances for them in order for them to, come back against the Mavericks and win this series? Yeah. Mhm. 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 Yeah. I'm gonna go. Well, I think PJ Washington, obviously, he came through huge for them against OKC. Uh, I think though the two players who, and they had solid game ones. I think they just need to continue to play well. Or Gafford and Derek Lively. You know, one of the things that makes Minnesota such difficult team to match up against is that Gobert and Carl Anthony Towns front court. Gobert offensively doesn't offer that much, but Cat is so versatile, and then on defense they have so much like that. They are really difficult to go up against the way they're built. I think having, PJ Washington, he's, kind of getting consistent minutes in the four no matter what, but being able to go between Lively and Gafford, that is really important for them to have both of those guys be consistent, to be able to limit Carl Anthony Towns, and to be able to just put it in a position where it is just up to Luca and Kyrie versus Anthony Edwards. If that is the situation that they're in, this is gonna, or if every game, those two are able to contain Carl Anthony Towns the way they were game one, it's gonna be a lot more like 5 games than it is gonna be 7. Yeah. So I think the combination of those two at defense is gonna be, the biggest X factor. But it's again going back to what you were talking about, though. It really does come back to Carl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards. Those stars from Minnesota, they have to be able to match and ultimately exceed the performance of Kyrie and Luca if they're going to be able to win this series. Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going Mavs. I'll do Mavs in 6. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think talking about Porzingis, that was going to be the first player who I mentioned. I think his health is going to be so important to that series as well. Because, even though he's coming back from this injury, it's going to be, it's a muscle injury that he suffered. It's something that, while he's going to be coming back from it, it's like how mobile is he? What percentage is he at actually? Again, going to that Gafford and Lively combo, that's just two athletic, physical centers that he's going to have to be going against. It's a big, even if Porzingis is there, that's going to be helpful for them. But not fully healthy Porzingis is, I think that would significantly hurt the type of defense that, the Celtics are going to be able to match Luka and Kyrie with. Al Horford, all due respect, is just not there. Like Al Horford is not Robert Williams. We saw what Robert Williams was able to do in the playoffs for the Celtics. Porzingis is a really good defender. Al Horford is not that. And if they're able to, I think if Boston or if Dallas is able to get into a position where they can just grind down the Celtics with their physicality, with their play, I can see them beating the Celtics. I think the Celtics, again, maybe we're just Boston haters. I'll admit to being a Boston hater, but you know, I think that again, this we were talking about it before earlier. This Boston team, just something about it to me just doesn't feel legitimate. Even if they win the championship this year, they very well may, but it just they haven't had to face that adversity yet at any point, throughout this season, really, or in the postseason. Yeah, it's like they've shown a lot that has just been like if you guys were if you were they've shown signs of the collapse. They just haven't collapsed yet. So we'll see. I guess we're both agreeing we're betting on the Boston collapse to come in the NBA Finals against Dallas. Yes, rooting for it, and Luka getting his first ring, which would be huge. We were talking about again. This is Luka's one of those guys where sooner or later in his career, you feel like he's going to make an NBA Finals. He's not a Joel Embiid, someone who's not going to make it past the second round. He's a winner. He's someone who we're expecting to make it to, the finals, to get to these stages with Kyrie alongside him. This might be Dallas's year. This might be their opportunity to get a ring and bring it back. I'm going to go Mavs in six. Yeah, yeah, I know. We did I feel like we predicted the Mavericks and Timberwolves. The Celtics was easy, and I think the Pacers, whatever. We injuries, yeah, I'll just take the L on that one. So I feel like we've been pretty good with our predictions so far. Yeah, we know basketball. We're spot on. Yeah, just keep listening. Just keep listening. All right. Well, we will see how we got another game coming up tonight. Conference finals are, coming at us hot and fast. And, NBA finals will be at us. And then season's over. We're into the draft. And then it's back to fantasy football. It's like, sports cycle is Yeah, I know it's back in full swing. Yeah, we'll see how the rest of the finals goes, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon.